Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy, and the late night not so funny man seems to have got fired, Jimmy Kimmel.
Yes, and we're all jumping up and down about it because finally, finally.
Okay, let's get right into the article, or the X, I guess you have.
Yes. So, according to Benny Johnson, breaking news, and this is literally just within the past hour, I think, official ABC broadcast affiliate Nexstar is removing Jimmy Kimmel from all 32 of their ABC stations until Disney answers for Kimmel's despicable attack on Charlie Kirk. Great job, Next Media Group. Thank you for standing up for Charlie.
Yeah, and he should have been gone a long time ago. I'm glad to see it. And the reason they're giving is actually justified reason, because there could be legal consequences to this.
Yes. Do you want to see what he said first?
Yeah, let's see what he
prompted this.
Yeah, I think you have the clip, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
So Benny Johnson did put it out, but let's hope Disney doesn't get mad at us. I mean, they have no reason to.
Hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
Okay, and I think that's good. That were the comments that kind of got him fired. That being said, it wasn't just Jimmy Kimmel that said it. It was a lot of the left-wing media. They jumped all over this. First, they said it was MAGA. Then they said it was a groiper, which is somebody that follows Nick Fuentes. Now they don't know what to say. They're inventing new words that this is non-political violence. I forget how you say the word, so I won't even try.
Well, they're trying very hard to make it seem and that it's not on their side, that it's not them. It's both sides of anything. Political violence is on both sides. We have to, but it's very clearly not. And they're having this cognitive dissonance, which is where you can't hold two different ideas in your head. And we're seeing it live happen. And it's something a lot of us in this space have been talking about for a long time. But finally, I think more and more people that are less involved in daily politics are noticing it too, which is scaring them even more.
Well, here's the difference between the right and the left. The left kind of glorifies and hopes something happens to somebody. Then one of their crazy lunatics come out of the woodwork and make it happen. And then they laugh and praise it. Not all the left, but a large majority, and even their leaders like Ilhan Omar, AOC. Who else did you say?
I mean, Jimmy Kimmel himself trying to invent things that are just simply not true.
But after they praise it, what happens is they put out a hit list on who they want to go next, and it emboldens the next person to do this. On the right, it's completely different. We disavow the violence when it happens. We don't want to see it happen again. And if it happens to a left-wing political candidate or somebody of that nature, we are not for it. We do not like it, and we make it known.
And with Jimmy Kimmel, I mean, there is all this talk about, oh, cancel culture, cancel culture. What in this case specifically, and in a lot of the ones we've been seeing, it's consequence culture. And it is the consequence culture coming from the private employers of these people and the people either learning under or being medicated by or flying with these insane people that have posted or talked about these things openly of their own volition. They're putting all of this online, and it is their employers and the people around them that say, hey, maybe we don't want to employ or be around a person that thinks that laughing at somebody losing their life, even if we don't agree with the opinions, is someone we want to be around. And that is how society gets, cleaner.
And let's not forget, cancel culture has been going on for the last 10 years, not just when it comes to your workplace. The left, we originally came from Canada. We now live in Mexico because of the political environment there. But the UK, Canada, the EU, Australia, every country but the United States. The United States is the first time where cancel culture is kind of going the other way. When the left does it, they take your job, they take your bank account, they give you tens of thousands of dollars in fine, and they throw you in jail. This is protected classes and hate speech laws. That's what's kind of infecting all of these other countries. Free speech is very important, but free speech sometimes can have consequences if it reflects on your employer and your employer doesn't want to be associated with you.
And there is a very fine line between, and I mean, we're seeing also what Pam Bondi has been doing, but there's a fine line between hate speech and not wanting to legislate that, but there being consequences and effects that just society wants to implement among others that they don't see as somebody they want to be around, which is normal and that is fine. Legislatively, though, and in consequences from the government, that is where free speech ends and that is where it must be protected. It shouldn't come into legislative action.
Yeah, I completely agree. If private industry wants to fire people or things like this, that's up to private industry. But I would also be in favor of there being protections if you're not making posts at work for you to be protected for your free speech. I know being on the right, we were targeted for over a decade. We still are being targeted. That's the thing. I would be fine for getting rid of cancel culture in general and having people just say their views online, because they're going to be a lot less likely to support their political candidates in the next election. I think in these midterms, we are going to see an absolute landslide.
A lot of them are also seeing, oh, I didn't know that this means that I may be, or I'm being lumped into with people that support this or think this or are okay with this because I'm not. But now they're finding themselves in a way politically homeless, but at the same time realizing what they've been supporting and once again going towards this whole cognitive dissonance that I'm thinking a lot are feeling. But let's see exactly what actually happened to Jimmy Kimmel. So ABC pulls Jimmy Kimmel Live off air indefinitely over Charlie Kirk comments. ABC said it was pulling the Jimmy Kimmel Live show off the air indefinitely after controversial comments by its host about the slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Kirk was assassinated.
And I don't know if I would call him a conservative activist. I think he was more supporting free speech and civil rights in general. Now, I know the left would disagree with that, but the mainstream media is constantly trying to put this label of activist on him, right-wing radical activist, and I don't like it at all. That being said, I guess they can say whatever they want until they lie, because now not only TPUSA, but the conservatives have a huge war chest to go after these people that are lying. It's very hard to go after an ABC News or one of these other outlets because they are lawyered up. You need a lot of money. A lot of money is now flowing in. We can stop these lies from happening. Maybe the mainstream media can come just a little bit more moderate.
And the way it happened is Federal Communications Commission Chair Brendan Carr suggested ABC's broadcast license was at risk from Kimmel's statements about Tyler Robinson, the accused ender of Kirk. And Nexstar Media Group, which is seeking FCC approval for a $6.2 billion merger with Tegna, earlier said the company owned and partnered television stations affiliated with ABC television network will preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live for the foreseeable future, beginning with tonight's show.
Yeah, and these stations are going to want to get their act together. Stations like CBS, you're seeing the transition because they're connected with Paramount Plus. Larry Ellison has just taken over TikTok. Paramount Plus is doing all the right things with signing the UFC, kind of going back to the middle with their mainstream media news shows. And I think that trend is going to continue to happen with Paramount Plus, CBS, and the rest of the Larry Ellison properties. But these other networks are going to be in big trouble, especially if big lawsuits start rolling in.
And one of the main things that Jimmy Kimmel said that was untrue, that it's not the first or only thing he's ever said that was untrue, and there's a myriad of examples we could give, but this one was especially egregious given what just happened and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So Jimmy Kimmel, during his opening monologue for Monday night's show, had suggested that Tyler Robinson, the man accused of fatally shooting Kirk last week at Utah University, was aligned with President Donald Trump's MAGA, Make America Great Again movement. And again, it's this rhetoric that they have been trying to play off, saying, oh, well, his parents were Republican. He was from Utah. They were registered Republicans. He was a white boy. He obviously grew up conservative. But if you just look at what was inscribed in the bullets, one of them saying, hey, fascist, catch, it was very obvious. And then with the press conference a few days ago, given by the investigation and regarding the investigation, talking about, yes, the mother even admitted that Tyler Robinson had moved and aligned further to the left. He was supporting a lot of LGBTQ causes and the trans movement. His partner, his roommate, they keep calling him, but his gay lover, I'll call him, or his boyfriend, was transitioning and had the delusion that he is a man who is actually a woman.
The single biggest piece of evidence here was actually the text messages, and they released those at the press conference as well. Sorry to interrupt you there.
And with Tyler Robinson being more concerned about his rifle and about his lover, as he called him, than about what he had actually done and actually fully grasping that he had taken a life, and not just a life, the life of a man who was 31 years old, had 2 children, and was probably going to be a United States president. But continuing on, the MAGA gang. So
well, and I will say this: a lot of media outlets might make mistakes and say things that, when news stories first break, might not be true, but they can usually redact it. I think Jimmy Kimmel in this instance isn't going to have a chance to redact it because he has made so many mistakes in the past, and he has kind of been on the hit list, and he's bringing a lot of heat to the network when it comes to lawsuits. So although a redaction is sometimes appropriate, in this case, I don't think it's going to happen.
And because it was clear that there was some malicious intent in the comments themselves, because he said the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving, he added. So clearly he was trying to pinpoint it on one side specifically, and we're just not buying it anymore. We're kind of done. Everybody is done with the lies because they've become so obvious, especially right after the investigation and the Utah commissioners came out to say exactly who this person was. This person's mother, Tyler Robinson's mother, came out to say her son was left aligned. And they're also starting to target and starting to look into other possible co-conspirators or people that were within the whole, what they're calling a left-wing terrorist radicalization group.
Well, I will say this as well. I'm thinking Jimmy Kimmel wished he was Stephen Colbert, because Colbert got fired, but they gave him a kind of farewell. They gave him a lot of good headlines when he left, so his job prospects might be a little bit better than Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel isn't going to have any love going out. He's going to go out into the darkness of night and nobody's going to say a word. At least that's what I think. There might be a lot of celebration here.
Yeah, I mean, I would still be a little bit. The last thing I'll say is they're saying that he's going to be, for the foreseeable future, indefinitely off air. Does that mean he could come back? Are they going to forgive him all of a sudden? And this indefinitely is a week only. We'll have to wait and see. But I don't think right now he deserves to be in that position if he's still willing and continues to spout just straight out lies.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a matter of he should or shouldn't be in that position. I think he is a legal liability to the network at this point, especially when we've seen some of the other newspapers and the $15 billion lawsuit. I think it was the New York Times we reported on the other day.
Yes.
Yeah.
That Trump has started against the New York Times. So I think they're starting to see that the administration is doing something about it. Cool.
Okay.
So we don't have any comments to read, but we're changing things up a bit here on the Net and the Guy. But there's also
okay, you're supposed to go into hold on. You're supposed to go into the Pam Bondi story now.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, make an introduction. So it's we're trying to cut clips.
He gets nervous. Someone that's been very crazy and in the headlines in the past 2 days is Pam Bondi, because she doesn't seem to grasp the concept of what free speech and the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution means.
Well, Pam Bondi is absolutely nuts. I could not believe when I seen it. Now, I know a lot of people are upset what happened with Charlie Kirk, but taking away America's free speech is absolutely ridiculous. And there are quite a few clips of Pam Bondi here saying that she's going to do just that.
And starting to sound like a lot of other legislators and people in countries that have implemented these laws and whose people are now suffering the consequences for it.
Yeah, the right wing is pushing back against this, and that's the big reason we're doing this story, and I hope a lot of other conservatives do as well. Piers Morgan mentioned this on his show and saying Pam Bondi is going too far and taking away America's free speech. That is what makes America so special, and it makes it's so special to be a U.S. citizen because we come from Canada. I know Canada doesn't have free speech. They say you do, but they can take it away in a second.
And now we live in Mexico, and we're also seeing the legislation and implementation of hate speech laws. And what does hate speech means and the consequences from it as well. So
well, here
it's everywhere.
Here in Mexico, you have to make public apologies if the government doesn't agree with you or they think you've said something inappropriate for 30 days on your own X account.
Yes. But let's see first, I guess, what she said. So from Shadow Ezra, Pam Bondi now openly admits that the U.S. government will target anyone they label as using hate speech. She says hate speech is not free speech and has no place in society, especially after what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, she sounds like the EU, the Canadian government, the UK government. She sounds like all these authoritarian leftist governments, and Man, I do not like this at all.
So she initially said this on the Katie Miller podcast, and let's see.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. There's free speech.
Okay, that was it. That being said, we will target you or anybody that uses hate speech. This is ridiculous. There is a clear and distinct line, and that is if you call for violence, that is no longer hate speech. That's actually a crime, and that's where the line is at. Short of that, you should be able to say anything you want. Maybe not at your workplace because your employer may have consequences for you because that's a private industry. But as far as the government coming in and trying to chill speech through hate speech laws, I see how that turned out in Canada, in Mexico, and all around the world.
But also she said, especially now after what happened to Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk himself was one of the main advocates against hate speech. And I'm sure, I mean, it's not what he would have wanted. And I think everybody and his close friends and just everybody in the space is saying this is insane.
Well, I know when I seen this, I had a huge problem with it. I immediately showed you right away, and I didn't know if other people were going to speak up about this.
Yeah.
In the last 24 hours, there has been a lot of independent creators kind of speaking up, and I just hope this gets into the government's ear, because if the government starts doing things like this, they are going to lose a lot of support in a time that things are really consolidating around the Conservative Party like we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm. And luckily, a lot of people are also speaking out, loud conservative voices and people just in MAGA or in this space. But from NBC News, Attorney General Pam Bondi faces backlash from the right over hate speech. And this is also not the first time in this year even that she has faced backlash for a bunch of different things. But let's see what most people are saying. So commentators in the MAGA universe have said Bondi's remarks are nonsense and at odds with what the conservative movement believes in. And it just goes to show she doesn't get it.
Well,
at all.
she almost sounds like a rhino. That's a Republican in name only. New MAGA, or the new populist movement, knows their first principles. And one of the big first principles that Charlie Kirk espoused was free speech. The fact that she's going after this, Charlie must be rolling in his grave right now.
I mean, unfortunately, he still hasn't been put even in his grave, and they're already doing that. Well, she's already doing this. Do you want me to go into it?
Yeah, let's see who said what here.
So in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Attorney General Pam Bondi has pushed...
We kind of know that part. I want to see the reactions of the content creators if they have them in here.
Conservative pundit Tucker Carlson called the idea that hate speech is a crime a lie. Any attempts to impose hate speech laws in this country is a denial of the humanity of American citizens and cannot be allowed under any circumstances. He added, conservative commentator Eric Erickson said that Bondi was a moron and that her comments didn't reflect the law.
Well, and this is absolutely correct. And I just want to say this, the right has control of their side. So when people of authority come out and say reckless things, kind of going against the first principles, which the conservative and MAGA movement is based on, there is going to be pushback. And Trump does listen to his base. That's why so many Trump supporters do support him, because he is willing to reconsider his views. One of the big things was the jibby jab. He changed his mind on that, especially with RFK, and now they're going in a different direction. Pam Bondi needs to get a clue. I have not liked her since the beginning of this administration. I will say I didn't know who she was at first, but within a few months, I said, I do not like this girl. RFK wasn't doing a lot in the beginning. He's completely changed. He's on board and doing what he promised he would do.
So Bondi quickly backtracked, clarifying that the Justice Department would only go after speech that led to violence. And there are already very clear and specific parameters about what it means to incite violence. And there is actually a pretty high threshold that any speech has to meet before it is actually considered incitement to violence. So we already know, she should already know that. Hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment, Bondi said on Tuesday on X. It's a crime. For far too long, we've watched the radical left normalize threats, calls for assassinations, and cheer on political violence. That era is over. And again, and we've spoken about this too, it's fine if a private employer realizes that they don't want one of their employees cheering on the assassination of Charlie Kirk or of anybody else. And after realizing that, through the own volition of the employee, by posting things online or saying things online, the employer decides to fire them. They're in their right to do so most of the time, because maybe they don't want someone that seems like a lunatic working for them or working around them or teaching their kids or flying their planes. But once it crosses the threshold into legislation and actually using the governmental force to go after people for speech, then they're no different than any other country in the world that's doing that.
Well, and it's usually in the policies of the company. So
Yes.
If you do violate the policies of your company, they do have the right to fire you. Now, if they're going to make up new policies and fire you retroactively, I don't know if I agree with that. But if they make new policies and then you break those policies again, I completely do agree with they have the right to fire you because you agreed to the terms and regulations of that job. There's a reason we do YouTube full time now, and it's because we're conservative. And in Canada, when I was up there, employers did not like a lot of things that I had to say.
Yes, and I mean, they made it quite obvious what
Yeah.
you could and couldn't say. But there's also the reaction of Matt Walsh. So from Red Wave Press, Daily Wire's Matt Walsh calls for the firing of AG Pam Bondi today after she announces DOJ may prosecute Office Depot for refusing to print posters for Charlie Kirk vigil in Michigan. Walsh wrote on X, "Get rid of her today. This is insane. Conservatives have fought for decades for the right to refuse the service to anyone. We won that fight. Now Pam Bondi wants to roll it all back for no reason. The employee who didn't print the flyer was already fired by his employer. And because the person went against the policy of Office Depot, so Office Depot decided what to do with them." This stuff being handled successfully.
Well, I wanted to say something there. That's kind of why I cut to that other camera. That being said, yeah, like Matt Walsh said, and a lot of people might not remember the case, but there was the case of the cake. They wanted, the baker wanted the right to refuse service to certain customers, and customers can go to another bakery or another place to print their flyers. That's the thing.
Yes, exactly. But this stuff is being handled successfully through free speech and free markets. This is totally gratuitous and pointless. We need the AG focused on bringing down the left-wing terror cells, not prosecuting Office Depot.
Yeah, and I will say this because I was watching Piers Morgan today, and a lot of leftists were talking about how the right's not calling Trump or the right wing out and Pam Bondi out about the Epstein files. I'm completely disappointed about the Epstein files, but I am still satisfied with a lot of the other things they're doing. But when it comes to free speech, that is an absolute first principle that I don't want to see the leadership of the conservative or the new MAGA movement step on.
Mm-hmm. And then Not the Bee also said, "I voted for a lot of things that I'm getting. I did not vote for this. This is the most dangerous thing I've heard an official say in a long time, and that includes the previous administration." And that is the problem. And we have discussed, if something were to happen, a few weeks ago we were talking, if something were to happen, the Trump administration was getting close to the ideas of maybe using digital IDs for the border, or starting to use excuses to further their governmental control and power, which is completely the opposite of what they got voted in for. They were voted in to clear the swamp and make government smaller, not bigger. And this would just be an example of them doing exactly that, using a terrible, tragic, and violent event to go after people's rights, which is the opposite of what most
and I still
people
think
want.
they're going to bring in digital currency and digital ID, but if they start stepping on free speech, that is a little bit too far. I am completely against digital ID and digital currency, so I hope if they do bring a digital currency, they leave the option open for the traditional American dollar.
And just to end with all this ridiculousness.
Oh no, there's a couple clips there.
Okay.
Yeah, I want. She actually had more than that first clip that she showed you. She's restated these crazy ideas of hers, and that's why the right is going so hard against her right now.
Because yeah, if she had just stayed on the correction and said, "Oh, sorry, not what I meant."
And employers, you have an obligation to get rid of people. You need to look at people who are saying horrible things, and they shouldn't be working with you. Businesses cannot discriminate. If you want to go in and print posters with Charlie's pictures on them for a vigil, you have to let them do that. We can prosecute you for that. I have Harmeet Dillon right now in our civil rights unit looking at that immediately, that Office Depot had done that. We're looking at that.
I don't even know if she's qualified for this job. That was actually the end of that clip. I don't know if she's qualified for this job. She's supposed to be the attorney general. She's supposed to know the law inside and out. Over the last 4 years of the Biden administration, these were crucial battles that we had already fought to have the right to deny people business as a private business, and free speech was a huge thing that Charlie Kirk kind of fought for. So the fact that she's making these statements as they're declarative is absolutely ridiculous. I think she needs to lose her job and somebody more qualified needs to come in. This isn't the first incident where she kind of showed she wasn't qualified for this thing. There's been the Epstein files and there's been quite a few other incidents here.
And also talking and wanting to turn it into a civil rights issue, as she said, having Harmy Daniel looking into it makes no sense. But to end, let's just listen to the words of a very wise man who is no longer with us. From Charlie Kirk: hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. And I think it is worthwhile to listen to his words, for her especially.
Exactly. I completely agree with that.
Rest in peace, Charlie.
Okay.
I keep forgetting we're still live.
Okay, cut to you. I'm going to stop the cameras.
Okay, and you're back with me. And yes, I keep trying to say it at the top of the show all the time, but we are still sending our condolences and our thoughts and our hearts are with Erica, Charlie Kirk's children, and everybody at Turning Point USA. And we will continue to report on that story and also other stories, but it is important to keep the finger on the pulse. And today being the 1 week anniversary of when Charlie Kirk got assassinated, I do think it is important to continue speaking about him, his legacy, but also the news surrounding it. But keeping the line in the pulse of other stories as well.
Okay, let's go into the next story here.
I was trying to fill. Okay, hold on. What is the next story? Okay. I don't like.
Okay, there are a ton of stories today, so the episode is going to go a little bit longer than normal, I think. I was surprised at how many things kind of popped up.
Yes. So breaking, TikTok US deal finalized. You know my thoughts on TikTok. If you don't, I think it's corrosive to society in general, shouldn't exist. Oracle, Silver Lake, and Andreessen Horowitz will control TikTok's US operations under a new 80-20 framework with ByteDance. The impossible just happened. 80% US-owned Oracle, Silver Lake, A16Z, and Legacy.
One moment. And if people don't know who owns Oracle, it's Larry Ellison. He also owns Paramount Plus. There's big rumors that he's going to buy Warner Brothers' entire library out or buy Warner Brothers itself out. They also got exclusive rights to the UFC, which is no longer on pay-per-view. It's absolutely free on CBS, which they also own CBS. They are quickly becoming one of the biggest media corporations in not only the United States, but the world. They are also one of the big tech firms as well. So they are going to have a first to market when it comes to data, AI technology, and entertainment.
But, and here's where I would say, don't believe it all. 20% Chinese owned, ByteDance keeps its slice. American board with US government oversight. New US only app with separate algorithm from global TikTok. The bottom line, this isn't just a sale, it's a complete rebuild. I don't know about that.
I didn't necessarily agree with this. And I do like Trump. I do just support the Trump administration. And I don't necessarily like TikTok. But that being said, for the US government to come in and force a sale of a foreign entity, it's one thing if they would have banned TikTok in the United States. I probably would have been against that too. But to force a sale to an American company, man, that almost seems like fascism. And that being said, what is fascism? It's the public-private partnership of government and private companies. And that's exactly what this kind of is. Even though I do like a lot of what the Trump is doing, I somewhat disagree with what happened here.
Yeah, that's basically what's happening in Canada as well.
Yeah.
The bottom line, this isn't just a sale, it's a complete rebuild. Again, if China is still involved, I don't believe it. US users will download a new app that looks identical to current TikTok, but runs entirely on American infrastructure with US controlled algorithms. ByteDance licenses their technology, but loses operational control. Yes, but is the CCP still involved with the operations as they have to be with every single Chinese company because they still are with ByteDance? So what does it mean that ByteDance is still there licensing their own stuff to them? The result, TikTok survives, creators keep audiences, Washington gets data control. Again, also not a good idea for Washington to
And
get
I think
data
a lot
control.
of this had to do with data and creating new media conglomerates within the space. Trump seems to be favoring Larry Ellison a lot. Larry Ellison may be a little bit older, but his son is very savvy as well. His son is one of the people making a lot of these moves for TikTok, for Paramount, heading up Paramount Plus, and signing the UFC to that exclusive contract. So once Larry Ellison is gone, I think the company's going to be in good hands with his son as well.
But I'd also wonder if there could be some sort of anti-competitiveness going on there because they're starting to,
No, there won't be, because there's
bigger.
a lot of other big tech companies like Apple that are in the media space as well as Amazon. So there's plenty of competition within the space. It just seems like Oracle and Paramount Plus are really rising to the top in the last few months.
Do you want me to go into this article? Or,
You can go into it a little bit, yeah, but you can skip the beginning. The beginning's usually a little bit.
Yes. So Oracle will control user data at its facilities in Texas under the new company, whose board will primarily consist of Americans and one member designated by U.S. government, according to the Journal. So basically what they were doing with China anyways, Susquehanna International, KKR, and General Atlantic and other existing investors in ByteDance, TikTok's parent firm, would also be a part of the controlling group. Ellison, 80, who is challenging Elon Musk to be the world's richest person.
Oh, and I did report that on my morning show. Ellison had taken the #1 spot. Elon Musk took it back, so they're in a war. It's funny that both these billionaires are kind of really right-wing billionaires supporting the right-wing movement now. We traditionally didn't have any of that. And also the news of George Soros, the government's going after him. So the left wing are losing their billionaires. Well, the right wing seems to be gaining a few.
Yes, and we got a deal on TikTok, Trump said earlier Tuesday, noting he would speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday to confirm the deal's framework. Trump later signed an executive order to extend a deadline for a TikTok sale to December 16.
Yeah, and I think this may have gone in with a lot of other things because Trump has been really asserting the Monroe Doctrine. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But China seems to be moving out of Central and South America while the United States moves in. I think it's becoming a multipolar world, and Russia, China, and America are kind of agreeing what regions are theirs.
Allowing additional time for talks to finalize, CNBC reported the deal is expected to close in the next 30 to 45 days, citing unnamed sources familiar with details of the negotiations. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told the outlet the deal was completed in essence in March or April, but talks were delayed after Trump
Okay,
announced
and let's just say this, 30 to 45 more days. We've heard a lot of things about a lot of these other tariff deals, and very few of them have pinned to paper yet. The outlines are kind of agreed on, but I'm not going to believe a lot of these things until I see them. I do hope a lot of these tariff deals go through, and I do hope this TikTok deal does go through, even though I disagree with it. It's probably better than the Americans' hands than the Chinese.
Mm-hmm. But now let's move on to more U.S. news, but a U.S. state that's doing something insane but not unexpected. From the Daily Mail, a Democratic state plans to take farmland from white owners and redistribute it to help rebuild stolen wealth. We've seen this story. It happened in South Africa. We know how it ended.
Well, hold on. It didn't just happen
It hasn't ended.
It didn't just happen in South Africa. It happened somewhere a lot more close to home, and that is in Canada. They are reconfiscating private land, public land, and distributing it to First Nations tribes. This goes right into that vein, as well as how you mentioned South Africa. Gavin Newsom right now we have an article later about Gavin Newsom again and the scam he kind of ran with the Palisades fires. But let's get into what he's kind of doing here.
So California legislators are set to hear plans to take farmland held by white owners and redistribute it to minorities in an aim to help rebuild stolen wealth. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom's agricultural equity advisors are reportedly set to finalize the plans, which would redistribute farmland to non-white Californians and Native American tribes.
This seems absolutely crazy, and there had been things that went forward for reparations, but they were at a local level, and they never really made it all the way through the legislation. It seems like this is almost at nearing an end state. The fact that Gavin Newsom is completely involved in this. And it's kind of scary because they could set a precedent here that could affect not just a lot of other states in the United States, but a lot of other countries worldwide. They're doing something similar in Mexico as well, in the south of Mexico.
They're trying to. And Native American tribes through land transfers and financial assistance programs. The report will come as a part of a 2-year plan being put forward by the California Agricultural Land Equity Task Force to Newsom and the California legislature by the end of the year. And this word equity, we keep hearing it with diversity, equity, inclusion, but equity essentially means everybody gets to the same place and has the same things, no matter the merit or regardless of the effort made. Equality means you have the beginning, starting line, and starting point, and then through merit and work and etc., you are able to move forward, but you have the same opportunity to start.
Oh, Chris, disagree with that somewhat. Not everybody does have the same starting point. That being said, you should have the same opportunity.
Yes, but to have the opportunity to have the starting point even. Yes, that's where equality comes from. Do you want me to keep going into it?
No, that's good for that. Just because we have so many stories, we'll fire through quite a few of them now.
Also about California, and we did speak about this on your other show.
Yeah, this was Bill AB 495, and this is critically important. This is the one story tonight that we have that people can actually take action on.
So from Mr. Red Pills, I can't even read the last bit. This is reality, and if you're in California, you need to leave there ASAP, especially if you have children, because they are coming for them.
And I'm going to try to find Gavin Newsom's number right now so people can make a phone call if they want. Okay, why don't we go into this, though?
Is this conspiracy theory or is this reality? What I'm about to tell you is going to shock you because I fact-checked this according to AI.
It's a meat market bill. It is a trafficking bill. It is unbelievable. So much so, don't believe me. Go to realimpact.us. It allows an individual to obtain this new form that comes with the bill. They fill it out, and they can name a child. John goes to a school in California and says, I have this form, and I am asking for Susie Q to be received into my custody. I want to take her out of school. The bill does not require a background check for this man, requires no identification, no driver's license, no nothing. There's no requirement in the bill for the school to call you to ask you if it's okay if John takes your daughter out of school. If this bill passes, I am going to ask you to leave the state of California. You're going to need to pack up and you're going to have to get out. You got to get out. You got to run with your kids. You got to go.
Hey, Grok, I'm going to ask you some questions about AB 495 in California. Please respond with a yes or a no answer. According to AB 495, a child can be taken from school from their caregiver. Is that correct? Yes. According to AB 495, it says that this includes non-relative extended family members who can sign the affidavit. Would this also include them? Yes. Can anyone essentially fall into the category then of a non-relative family member? Yes. Is there anything in this bill explicitly that would prevent a stranger from kidnapping a child from school, provided they filled out the affidavit and claimed to be a non-relative family member? And Grok says no. This is not...
Okay, that's pretty good for that. And I will say this. I went in depth about this on my show the other day just because it is so important. If they set this precedent in California where strangers can take your children out of school, and just so everybody knows, they're doing this under the premise of ICE. They want illegal immigrants to have other people pick up their children in case they get picked up by ICE. That's the way they're getting this legislation through and the type of fear mongering they're using against Orange Man Bad. That being said, I do have Gavin Newsom's office number here, and I'm going to give it out for not only California residents, but anybody that really lives in the United States or maybe even internationally to pressure on Gavin Newsom. Even though I don't think in a normal time, Gavin Newsom would change his mind on this bill, he is going to be running for president. And if this bill passes, he needs to know people aren't going to vote for him because of this, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or the other. Okay, the number is, you always need it if you live out of state, it's 1-916-445-2841. Gavin Newsom's office number again is 1-916-445-2841. And just to express politely that you are against this bill and you do not want to see it pass. I believe the bill goes onto Gavin Newsom's desk on Monday. So there's only a few days before we can really apply the pressure to him. This was also one of the big last projects Charlie Kirk was kind of working on before his passing that are actionable for the average citizen of the United States or globally. So,
and yes, California legislature approves bill threatening parental rights despite strong opposition from CaliforniaFamily.org. Last Friday, California Senate and Assembly, and this is from 2 days ago. California State Senate and Assembly approved AB 495 along strict party lines, with Democrats in support and Republicans in opposition. The bill, authored by Assembly member Celeste Rodriguez, Democrat from Los Angeles, now sits on Governor Newsom's office desk. He must decide by October 12th whether to sign it into law or issue a veto. California Family Council is deeply alarmed that it has advanced this far. It weakens parental rights.
It says October 12th, but it is expected to go to his desk on Monday. So it could sit there for a while. Hopefully it does sit there for a while, so people do have the opportunity to call him. You can also probably contact him by email. I don't currently have the email, but again, be respectful if you do call.
And there were some tweaks to it after the initial uproar of people saying, how can we be letting our children go with anybody that signs a random form?
Well, there was a huge protest of quite a few thousand people that showed up at California's capital there. I believe it's Sacramento. And in response to that, they changed the fact that a supposed stranger can't, and it has to be a family member that can take the kid out. But there's no ID actually needed. You can give a social security number that is not a picture ID, so there's no way to verify. And the school is not required to call the parents to verify any of this. And there's already ways. When you enroll your kid into school, you're supposed to give a list of people that can acceptably take them out of school. That should be enough. We don't need strangers having the right to take kids out of school. Legally, the school will have to give anybody that comes in, says they're a family member, and signs this waiver, they simply print offline.
So there were tweaks made, but they failed to actually address the bill's fundamental flaws. A stranger, let me just read this. The bill continues to allow individuals to claim kinship within the fifth degree without requiring notarization, verification, or parental consent. In practice, this means a stranger could falsely claim to be a relative and assume authority over a child's schooling or healthcare decisions or taking them out of schools. So the whole bill, just to make it clear, came out what supporters claimed. Supporters framed AB 495 as compassionate legislation designed to help immigrant families prepare for emergencies. So, for example, if ICE came and then they couldn't pick up their kids from school, they could just designate anybody around their family or a family friend to go pick up the kids. That was the intention. But of course, intentions only go so far. And as we have seen with other crazy legislation that the left has tried to do in the name of immigration or for immigrants, we also saw them end up having to claim that a child in the womb is actually protected by law and a child, which completely could destroy their argument for abortion. So they're not thinking things clearly.
Let's put this extremely clearly. This is a PDF file's wet dream. If this passes, I am expecting horror stories to occur because of this. A lot of offenders within the state of California probably know this law is coming up, and they're looking at this as an opportunity. This bill needs to be knocked down.
Yes, and again, as many good intentions as you might have, they don't think things through, do they? But let's jump over the pond to talk about Trump in the UK. We also saw massive protests in the UK recently, but from Nick Sortor, the warm welcome for President Trump in England has been absolutely epic. America is finally respected again. Even Piers Morgan is impressed. We've not done this for any other world leader. This is unprecedented. It's a statement by the royal family. We're going to roll out the ultimate red carpet. And so let's see how they welcomed him.
No question. I think this is a real statement by the king and by the senior members of the royal family. I mean, it's very rare they all get together like this for a visit by a foreign leader. They're doing it to make a point. I think they recognize the world feels a little bit precarious right now. You have two raging wars in Ukraine and in Gaza, and you have a lot of people, particularly since the appalling murder of Charlie Kirk, I think are feeling very tense about the way that issues like free speech are going in the world. And I think that the royal family want to make a statement. They are aligning themselves very publicly today with the President of the United States, who they know actually believes in his heart fundamentally in the principles of free speech, as indeed do they. So I think that this is it's a statement by the royal family. We're going to roll out the ultimate red carpet. And again, just to stress, I've not seen this done for any other world leader. This is unprecedented. And bearing in mind that Donald Trump is getting a second state visit, but the first one was for a different monarch. So nobody has ever, US president or anybody else, has ever had a state visit with two different monarchs. So that, again, I think is an important thing to say. Last time it was with Queen Elizabeth. This time it's with her eldest son, King Charles. That is real history. And I keep coming back to how his mother would feel, Donald Trump's mother, Mary, how she would have felt about this, watching her son just on a huge level.
And we can see King Charles behind Donald Trump here, and the mainstream media is focusing on this immensely, saying this is not protocol, this should never have happened, this is disrespectful from Donald Trump. But I will say, in the beginning of that clip, Prince Charles was side by side with Donald Trump, and he pushed Donald Trump from the back forward, indicating that Trump should walk first. So I think there's much to do about nothing about a lot of those mainstream articles that are being written. Mm-hmm. Also, I will say this. The UK has to be absolutely freaked out. The United States is starting to take control of the global economy and other things, especially with digital currency coming in. The way they've treated free speech over the last few years, especially with what happened to Charlie Kirk now, they're looking at Trump consolidating his power in the midterms and then JD Vance taking over after him for potentially another 8 years.
And also, let's not forget that for the past few months, the US has also been pressuring the UK regarding free speech specifically, and they just had this giant, almost 3 million people march in the UK. So of course, they're going to be a bit more cautious receiving him and listening to what he's saying about free speech.
But I will say this, they might not bring the issue of free speech up on this particular trip. They might talk about a lot of other things. And what indicates that to me is JD Vance stayed at home. He's actually currently in Michigan. And somebody actually asked him, does he wish he was over in London? He says, no, he's here to make America great again. London can wait. So it was an absolutely fantastic response by JD. That being said, they still have to put pen to paper for that tariff deal, and that might be what this is about. Also, let's not forget King Charles is an absolute globalist, and Trump is going against the globalist, but he does have a lot of respect for the royal family. So it's going to be interesting what happens behind closed doors. We're going to have to wait and hear what the flies on the wall kind of said, because the mainstream media isn't going to, I don't think, necessarily be transparent with what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And we did have this article from the BBC saying Trump's state visit is mired with potential pitfalls despite careful planning. Let's see what they say. U.S. President Donald Trump's state visit to the United Kingdom this week will be no stranger to controversy, just as his first was 6 years ago. A very nice way to frame the whole situation. Back then in June 2019, as well as taking tea with the late Queen, the U.S. President called London Mayor Sadiq Khan a stone-cold loser, backed Boris Johnson in a Tory leadership race, and suggested the NHS should be part of a US-UK trade
And
talks.
one moment, Keir Starmer right now is in huge trouble. They had the biggest protest in British history just happen over the weekend. It was regarding free speech. The fact that Charlie Kirk had recently lost his life, he became a martyr of that movement. And it's looking like a transfer in prime minister or potentially government very soon.
So all this was accompanied by a petition saying he should not receive a state visit in the UK, signed by more than 1 million people, as well as noisy protests involving this. So this was in 2019, thousands, and a huge inflatable effigy that became known as the Trump baby. If you don't remember that, it was floating all over the sky. This week's second state visit, unprecedented for a non-royal, first was no exception.
Melania looks like a flight attendant there. That being said, I will say the UK has been the #1 country pressing this Ukraine war to continue. Donald Trump has put it flatly and plain out that if they don't stop buying oil from Russia, then he's not going to put the sanctions on. And if they want to, he's willing to do it, but they're going to have to go forward. If they go forward, they're going to bankrupt their own country. So I don't think they can. That being said, if Keir Starmer does step down and somebody else takes his place, they may be much more receptive to ending this war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was looking for another picture. But yes, so, and we also talked about on your show yesterday that they did roll out a whole giant picture of Trump with Epstein, but that didn't seem to, and I mean, it was very obvious where it was coming from.
Well, yeah, well, I'll just say it for this audience in case you didn't watch my other show. Yeah, protesters rolled out this huge photo of Epstein and Trump. I almost think it was coordinated with the UK government because one of the big ministers was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. It was well known he hadn't stepped down. There was going to be a lot of attention placed this weekend on that. That being said, having that photo of Trump, they are hoping Trump doesn't bring it up at all. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's a lot of things in those files about the UK government. So.
But speaking of the globalists and going after them, so from Benny Johnson, breaking, Senator Chuck Grassley announces a whistleblower has exposed the program Arctic Frost for targeting 92 Republican groups, Charlie Kirk's TPUSA among them. All records will be made public today. The new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups and Republican-linked individuals, were placed under investigative scope of Arctic Frost. On that list was one of Charlie Kirk's groups, Turning Point USA. Today, Senator Johnson and I are making these records public for the entire country to see.
Yeah, and let's just say this about this. A lot of people may not have realized this was going on in the period of history when Biden was in office. I knew a lot about this. I didn't know TPUSA specifically was being investigated, but Joe Biden had labeled any MAGA supporters or any people that consider themselves to be MAGA to be put on an extremist list that would be investigated by the FBI, which was absolutely insane.
I mean, Temple did mention this might also be what kind of made the whole Russia tenet thing.
Well, I will also say this: MAGA supporters were declared extremists, and the Washington Police Department, Biden was trying to federalize it to have them investigate MAGA supporters all over the nation. So it's very interesting how Trump is now sending a federalized police force out of Washington, D.C. to different cities. They're doing the same thing, but in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to watch it?
Yeah, let's watch this.
And that is FBI Director Kash Patel.
And he's doing a much better job as of late. It was a little bit disappointing what happened with the Epstein files, but he's coming around, much like RFK has as well.
Well, and with the Charlie Kirk investigation, that has also been a bit... People are not super happy with him, but let's see what happens there.
Well, it's well understood that your predecessor left you an FBI infected with politics. I'm going to provide examples of that today, including making public new whistleblower records. At your nomination hearing, I made public records that whistleblowers provide me about Arctic Frost. Arctic Frost was the FBI case opened and approved by antitrust Trump FBI agent Thibault. Arctic Frost then became Jack Smith's elector case against then citizen Trump and now President Trump. These new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. The case was expanded to Republican organizations.
You can put it at 1.5 speed. It's an old guy next time.
Well, I didn't know how slow he was going to talk. I didn't see the clip beforehand. I'd read that this was coming out, but I didn't see the clip. Sorry for boring you, I guess. But it is important.
There was something I was going to say about it, but he was talking for a long time. It kind of slipped my mind there.
Yeah, sorry. Something started playing. Hold on. There we go. But yes, FBI's Trump probe Arctic Frost also investigated Charlie Kirk's TPUSA. Grassley reveals Senate Judiciary Chair.
That's what I was going to say.
Man.
If currently right now, Charlie Kirk shooter's being investigated, and it looks like there was a fairly large Discord group that was involved with him, and it might have been colluded. We have to remember there have been plenty of examples in the past. One of those examples being Gretchen Whitmore, where FBI or CIA agents were in those Discord chats, kind of pushing these shooters or these potential people that were going to do violence towards doing violence. If that comes out and an FBI agent was involved in pushing the shooter forward to do something like this and then didn't stop it, Kash Patel is going to be able to absolutely clean out the FBI of any corruption. There'll be a mandate at that point. I don't know if that's something that's going to happen, but the fact that there's a lot of people in the Discord, there is a good chance one of those people could have been an FBI agent.
And this is just speculation.
Yeah, but because of the Gretchen Whitmore case and about 4 other cases, the government did have a precedence under Biden of this happening. So if an agent went rogue and pushed somebody to do this, there would be a mandate for Kash Patel to clean out the FBI at that point.
True. But, and also, I mean, we didn't grab the story, but I'll just quickly say there are some social media companies or media companies now having to go also in front of the oversight committee in the House to talk about the maybe radicalization, especially on the left, that happens on their platform. Some of them were Discord, Twitch, and I don't want to like misname the other ones because I couldn't grab the article, but we will bring that story more on Friday once it coalesces how and when it's actually going to happen. But it is interesting because finally, I mean, these are Reddit as well. These are companies that have been banning and blocking conservatives just for the most moderate, mild of opinions, but they have continued to allow a lot of this calls for actual violence, calls for, and even for people to coalesce and form groups to actually go maybe target. I'm talking about Antifa, etc.
Yeah,
Andy No has a lot more on that, but.
And I will say, let's not forget, and I'll just go back to the talking point I said in the beginning, conservatives are still being targeted on a global basis from the UK to Canada to the EU to Australia. They are being canceled. They are losing their jobs. They're having fines. They are being arrested for what's called hate speech against specific groups or gender identities. The fact that this is going on a global basis and now people are complaining that conservative private industries, something similar is happening. Yeah, I just want to say it is still going on a global basis against conservatives. So,
speaking of left-wing terrorism, judge dismisses terrorism charges against Luigi Mangione. I'm surprised.
It was the terrorist charges that were dropped. They're still second-degree murder charges. The fact that that's not first-degree murder is concerning. Also, the fact that I think the terrorist charges would have made this a federal case, and now it may be a state case. And if he goes in front of a state jury in New York City, he only needs one person on that jury to have a hung jury, and he will get off. There is a good chance this guy is going to walk because of the type of people that will be on the jury. I think it was very important that this case was made federal because there'll be different standards for the jury. It's going to be interesting what happens in this case. Also, I'll say I would more than cover this case on a daily basis if it is a state case. If it is a state case, it's legal to televise or stream the case. If it's a federal case, it won't be streamed whatsoever. Federal cases aren't allowed to be televised.
Yes, and if you don't remember who Luigi Mangione is, a judge in New York State has dismissed 2 terrorism charges against Luigi Mangione, the alleged ender of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
I'm going to go get some water.
Okay. I'll continue reading. However, Judge Gregory Caro, during a hearing on Tuesday morning, ruled a charge of second-degree murder against Mangione could stand. He said prosecutors had failed to establish that there was enough violence to justify the terrorism-related murder charges. I'm trying to censor myself a bit for YouTube at least, because I will not say I will not allude to what happened to Charlie Kirk, but in general, I'm trying to stay on YouTube's good side, that they saw it against Mangione. And he also became this celebrated figure on the left and for some people on the right as well that have, I mean, some valid points against the way the US healthcare system works. But once again, violence and this level of violence is not not just not the answer, but it's not the way to solve the issue. And because of this, it has come more to the forefront, but at the same time, just more radicalization and more thinking that it is okay and an okay response has also come forth. Mangione is accused of gunning down Thompson on a busy Manhattan street in December last year. In a written ruling, Caro said the allegations against Mangione did not meet the definition of terrorism under state law.
Okay, yeah, and I just kind of wanted to give the update on
Yeah.
that case before we kind of move forward.
Because
And
a lot of people were incensed that
oh yeah.
mean-
And the left was absolutely celebrating this case the same way they were celebrating the stabbing that happened on the subway with the Ukrainian lady, the same way they were celebrating Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you grabbed those statistics from X.
I
that
can
had.
grab him now.
Okay, you'll grab them real quick. But there was a poll taken, I think it was a U.S. Gov poll,
YouGov, yeah.
which is a pretty credible source that shows just when asked, is violence acceptable? On the left, it is absolutely a little bit ridiculous.
So yeah, Steve McGuire says most Americans think it's unacceptable for someone to be happy about the death of a public figure they oppose, but 24% of the very liberal and 12% of young adults say it's acceptable, according to a new YouGov survey.
Okay, let's go to the actual Democrats and Republicans here.
Yes. So, do you generally consider it to be acceptable or unacceptable for a person to be happy about the death of a public figure they oppose? So, red is always or usually unacceptable, white is not sure, and purple is always or usually unacceptable.
So, if you're very liberal, 24% of those people find it always acceptable. Another 20% are not sure. So, that's a 44% of that demographic that are very liberal but think violence is okay. If you're somewhat liberal, violence is always okay. 10% said yes. Well, 17% said not sure. That makes it 27%. This is really concerning. Go down to the conservative numbers, which the conservatives, if you're very conservative, you said, I think it was 4%. They can't even fit it on there. 4%, it's always okay. 7% said not sure. So that's right around 10%.
Yeah.
That's within an acceptable range, I would say. If you're regularly conservative, you can't even see the numbers. They're so low. They couldn't fit them in there.
And the age breakdown is also kind of concerning as well, because mostly it's the younger people that have now started to consider political violence and just being grateful that someone has passed. Okay.
Well, yeah, and it's in this Trump era, these people are becoming radicalized. What's going to happen if there is a major landslide in the midterms and then JD Vance takes over for another 8 years? These people that think violence is okay, that number is going to become larger. The people that already think it's okay are going to become more radicalized.
And it is the reason why I call it, leftism in general, a death cult, and progressives even more. And the fact that these numbers, are surprising to some people, I guess, is because they don't have the finger on the pulse of what some people actually think. But it has helped to enlighten many to what the actual radicalization and how radical the left can be just in general with regular people.
Yeah, but I don't even think it's the radical group. I think it's the more moderates that celebrate it afterwards and say it's okay, or I understand why, because that continues the cycle for the next person to step up and go after another person because it was glorified, accepted, and cheered. When violence happens and a right-winger is involved in that violence, the rest of the right wing disavows it. They say it's not okay. Therefore, it's less likely somebody else is going to step up. Without a doubt, there's radicals on both sides, but when violence happens, only one side kind of cheers it on.
And that is why I'm sick and tired of this both sidesism that a lot of people, mostly on the left, keep trying to do in the media and just in general, saying, oh, but there's political violence on both sides. No, it's not the same. And we haven't reacted the same either. For Charlie Kirk, there's been prayer, vigils, murals, nothing has happened other than some crazy lunatics trying to destroy
debates. A lot of debates
murals
are scheduled now, and,
Yes.
and we're not stepping down from those debates. And that's the thing. A lot of positivity and consolidating in positive ways happened with the death of Charlie Kirk. That's typically what happens on the right. On the left, we can see what happened with George Floyd, $16 billion of damage. And it was actually a lot more than $16 billion. The insurance companies capped it out at $16 billion because they couldn't pay any more out.
Yep, and it was the Summer of Love, and a lot of other people did lose their lives during those riots and during what happened after the passing away of George Floyd, probably at his own hand by swallowing a bunch of pills, as per the investigation.
Okay, let's go into.
I was just quickly going to say, with Luigi Mangione, we saw the same kind of fervor about celebrating him and making him, not the United Healthcare CEO, a martyr. He was also a young father of children.
I didn't grab the
two
clip,
kids.
but there was a clip of Mangione when the terrorist charges were dropped. They were absolutely celebrating like it was the greatest day of their life, which is crazy.
But even here in Mexico, I would see TikTok reels, well, not TikTok reels, but reels and stuff on Instagram celebrating Mangione all the way in the US and from very progressive and very lefty people that I sometimes follow. And I do think that that's insane. Sorry, I had to say that just to make it clear that it's all over the place, not just in the States. From Lips of TikTok, if you don't follow them and you want to see the consequences people are getting for celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination, then go follow them because they post them all. Student at University of North Georgia says her required course reading explains that Christians are a white supremacist group. U of North Georgia, what's going on?
This was a bit of a crazy story, and we were out at the mall buying some shirts for today because I'm dressing up a little nicer these days, I guess. But I seen this when you were getting your crepe there, and man, this shocked me.
A Nutella crepe. But yeah, so let's watch what this student said. And again, this is not the first time it's happened. In Canada, this is basically just all school curriculum.
I might be getting canceled for this, but I'm kind of pissed off. Anyway, I'm a senior in college and I'm in international public relations, and I was told to read chapter 8 this week of International Public Relations, Negotiating Culture, Identity, and Power. I'm reading, I just opened it up to chapter 8 about 5 minutes ago. I've been sitting here in awe. Chapter 8 is titled Contested Identities, Shifting Publics in a Globalized World. I'm going to read you what I just read and where I stopped. I think it's the second sentence, maybe the third. Identity may be one of the most contentious words of the new millennium. An internet search produces the following modifiers for identity: corporate, sexual, digital, public, racial, national, brand, and even Christian. A US-based white supremacist group. I'm pissed. So I would
Pause it
just
real
really
quick.
like to.
Yeah, and if you didn't get that, they said Christians are a white supremacist group, and this is in a textbook in colleges. No, I understand in Canada and the EU and a lot of other countries I've seen things like this. It's very pervasive in the United States as well. We're going to have an article we're going to kind of go into in just a moment, kind of saying this so you don't think it's just a girl on the internet.
Say that as a Christian. If you're reading this and you're not a Christian and you're in college, I am not a white supremacist. So can we cancel these authors? Or are we going to cancel me?
Okay, that's good.
I'm sorry, please.
And Christianity is not just for white people. There are a ton of black people, a ton of Mexican people.
Yes, 80-something% of the population in Mexico is some type of Christian or follows some type of Christian religion, mostly Catholic.
So yeah, the fact that this is in a textbook is crazy. Okay, go into the article just really quick because we do have a lot of stories.
Yeah, so from Access, WDU, and UNG, or University of North Georgia, issues statement after student raises concerns over textbook. The University of North Georgia has issued a statement after a video posted by a student to social media raised concerns over a textbook. A video posted earlier this week by Kelby Murphy to TikTok raised concerns over the wording in a textbook titled International Public Relations, Negotiating Culture, Identity, and Power. Just from the title, I mean, you can kind of go see where it's going. The student cited an excerpt from chapter 8 of the book that said, she said disparaged Christians. Initially, identity may be one of the most, so that's what she read. And here you can see how it was written and how it was phrased. So it was actually bracketed to explain, like an explainer of what Christian means within the textbook. Murphy said she took offense to the passage. She says, my feelings were hurt. So, okay, moving on.
Yeah, those other groups that are in there are, a lot of those are protected groups in classes. And it seems like Christianity is one that is the opposite of a protected group. It's not just an unprotected group. It's a group that they're not only attacking in this book, but in society in general. In Canada, there were over 200 Christian churches burned down that weren't state approved. Canada has a war on non-state approved churches. They have approved Christian state churches that fly rainbow flags and that are okay, that are allowed to keep their nonprofit status. Well, churches that they deem unacceptable are just either burnt down or they lose their tax exempt status in Canada. Similar policies happen all over the world.
So the university issued a statement on Tuesday afternoon regarding the video and the textbook in question. University officials say they believe the excerpt from the book was misinterpreted by the student. Hold on, because this is important how they're actually wording it. They said, we are aware of and understand recent concerns raised about a passage. But they said that the author's references to the Christian Identity Movement, a U.S.-based extremist group that misuses Christian symbols to promote hate. We recognize how this mention could be misinterpreted, and we are reviewing the matter. Doesn't seem like they were anywhere.
No, it said
nowhere.
Christian.
Yes, nowhere did they do that reference. And then she said, the girl that posted the video said, my professor enlightened me on the Christian Identity Movement. I referenced the passage in my next email and let her know that I still do not think that this passage was blatantly explaining the Christian Identity Movement. Instead, it was connected to the word Christian in the book as an explainer, and as we saw with the paragraphs.
And this, I mean, there are much more egregious examples. It just kind of caught me off guard, so I had to clip that article there.
Yes, and that is happening again in Georgia, which is usually,
I
mean, at least purple.
This next clip actually shocked me as well. Now, the reporter did come out with an apology, but this was a little bit ridiculous when I seen it, and I told you about it, and you didn't believe me at first.
So from Eric Doherty, ABC News says the text messages between Charlie Kirk, assassin Tyler Robinson, and his transgender boyfriend are very touching. So these are the text messages sent after he had shot Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Where he called him my love.
So they're trying to play this out like Bonnie and Clyde, like it was such a romantic love affair, and the violence was. I think they're implying it was justified, like a lot of liberal media is saying these days. But the fact that they're trying to put a love story, like they're going to make a movie about this thing, is ridiculous.
Because they have no other way to excuse it otherwise, and because it involves a trans person.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
That's no duality. That's insanity, if anything. But I think he was fully conscious of what he was doing as well, so...
Well, also, there's a lot of suspicion that text message chain was kind of pre-orchestrated in order when they go into trial, so they can only prosecute the shooter and not his trans lover.
His boyfriend.
Yeah.
But yes, and after this, it was, of course, a firestorm from the independent ABC reporter slammed for highlighting the touching text messages from Charlie Kirk's suspected killer. ABC's Matt Gutman says he was trying to explain the jarring contrast between the horrific killing and the manner in which Tyler Robinson allegedly spoke to his roommate. Again, just call him his boyfriend. It's not a roommate anymore. We're not in the 19-whatevers. But
well, a lot of the story did come out when the left-wing media was still trying to call this guy MAGA, like Jimmy Kimmel called him, and then that narrative kind of fell apart. So then they started calling him a Nick Fuentes Groyper supporter. That narrative is falling apart, and now they're in the camp like they don't know what to call it because the only thing left to call it is what it is, and that is a left-wing radical.
Yes. Or just the left wing. From Libs of TikTok update, ABC's Matt Gutman issued an apology saying he deeply regrets calling the text messages of Charlie Kirk's alleged shooter very touching. Do you accept his apology? So he said, yesterday I tried to underscore the jarring contrast between this cold-blooded assassination of Charlie Kirk, a man who dedicated his life to public dialogue, and the personal disturbing text read aloud by the Utah County attorney at the press conference. I deeply regret my words, did not make that clear, but let there be zero doubt I unequivocally condemn this horrific crime and the pain it caused to Charlie Kirk's family, those who were forced to witness it at UVU, and the millions of people he inspired. Do you believe him?
Well, it is what it is. He's trying to save his job. I will say this. I think he's a different case than Jimmy Kimmel, and you're not going to go fire everybody for everything. If somebody is willing to apologize, okay, they're willing to apologize. Jimmy Kimmel is a different sort of animal because he keeps making
Literally
these
animal.
blatant lies and what he would call mistakes over and over again. So I guess, yeah, let the guy keep his job. Jimmy Kimmel, no, don't let him keep his job.
He was just trying to maybe make it more interesting or something.
Okay, let's go into...
But somebody that is not changing and has no intentions of, and if you have no idea who he is, we'll get into it. But Destiny, and he has been on Piers Morgan like what, once or twice now since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and he's just going insane.
I'm somebody that watches a lot of left-wing media because I like to know their talking points. Whenever I do get into a debate or things like that, I also watch a lot of centrist and right-wing media as well. But Destiny is one of those people I've actually watched for years. Him, Vosh, Hassan. That's usually a good indication where the left wing is at. But in recent years, Destiny has become completely radicalized with Trump derangement syndrome. He used to make good arguments. He used to be one of the best debaters on the left-hand side. He's no longer one of the best debaters. He's not even a very good debater. He is somebody that is just completely radicalized and has been calling for violence.
Do you want the first clip or the second clip?
We can watch the one with her. And now this is somebody that is also left-wing, but is much more moderate and has a much more acceptable approach that isn't radicalized.
Blanked on her name. Well, if you haven't seen how she speaks about why she kind of left
She's from the Young Turks.
Yes. Damn, what's it? Okay, I'll remember her name. But it says, when the substances start to wear off, talking about Destiny.
If someone assassinated my husband, I would not be able to have the level of composure she had during that speech. I would be out for blood. I understand why she's angry and why she said the things that she said. Okay, you need to understand what being a human is, what it's like to actually lose someone that you love, that you chose to spend your life with, that you chose. If someone
Okay, and I just kind of brought that. Oh yeah, we can watch the second one. So just so people get the context.
Anna Kasparian, that's who she is.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yes, so he went completely crazy on Piers Morgan, who was having debates.
He does like 5 to 8 hour streams on a regular basis, and he's been going completely crazy a lot for the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And as Trump gains more and more power and things actually start to go right for the country, he's completely losing it.
And there are a lot of also allegations about substances and et cetera.
Not just substances, but what he's done to other women, left-wing content creators.
Mm-hmm.
Cox has made it clear that their investigation has now established that he had been radicalized by a leftist ideology, which drove him to do this. That's just
I'm sorry, excuse me, when?
Yesterday, he said that.
No. When was he radicalized? In the 6 months that he did remote college? Not
I don't know when he was radicalized, but I do know the very reasonable sounding governor of Utah has made it clear that the
you
may not want to hear this.
An ongoing investigation.
You may not want to hear it, Destiny, but the reality is the investigators, according to the governor of Utah, have established that he was radicalized to a leftist ideology that drove him to murder Charlie Kirk. Now, let me just ask you.
That's just not true.
Let me just ask you.
There's no way to deal with it.
Okay, you're accusing the governor of lying.
Yeah.
That's your prerogative. But
sure.
If it turns out to have been somebody with a leftist ideology who wanted to shut up Charlie Kirk, would you condemn that?
I won't condemn anything until the president of the United States can go on air and say, all of us need to calm down.
So you won't condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk?
And to think for a second, this guy would actually listen to Donald Trump and anything Donald Trump says and says, yeah, he'll tell everybody to calm down when President Trump does? No. This guy, this is actually a mild clip from him. If you actually watch him stream, it's radical. He's starting to get banned off of, you told me, Twitch the other day?
Yeah, I believe Twitch banned him. I don't know how good of an idea that is, but I mean, if they don't ban Hassan as well, then there's just another issue right there to deal with.
And I will say this, I did not like when they were banning right-wing content creators, but when they did, and it sent a message to the rest of the content creators, right-wing content creators are much more careful in what they say. They're not calling for violence. They're not calling for anything like that. So
yeah, much more measured. And also it helped, I think, a little bit better their own arguments.
Yeah,
in a
it
way.
really.
But I'm not calling
it. Really helped the right wing debate sphere out because everything when they would debate would be based upon facts and evidence. After that point, they kind of had to be, otherwise they would be reported and banned.
Until Donald Trump says something.
I'm a YouTuber. Leftists and Democrats have been condemning and turning down the temperature, condemning violence, turning down the temperature for a decade. Donald Trump can't go on TV and say, all of us need to calm down.
Right.
Can you tell me why he cannot?
Why
tell
would you
his side
expect
to
anybody,
calm down?
Destiny?
You
What-
can't answer that. Can you answer that question? Why
Okay,
can't
can
Trump
you
go on
answer
TV
this
and say,
question?
all of us should be less violent?
Why do you
can't
think-
Trump say that?
why do you
Why
think-
is your behavior contingent on Donald Trump?
Insane right now.
Why do you think?
Your
No, let me
behavior
ask a
contingent
question.
on Donald Trump?
Let me
Why
ask
is
a
that?
question.
Because he's the president of the United States of America and the leader of the
Yeah,
opposing
Destiny.
political party.
Destiny. Let me
You
just.
have a huge audience of young men who
I'm a
listen to
YouTuber
everything you have to
who
say.
has more
So
young
when
men
you,
following
it
him.
doesn't matter.
Okay,
You
that's
have a
good.
huge
And
audience.
yeah, he's right. He is a YouTuber, but a lot of the people that do watch him are radicalized. It's the exact demographic of people that this shooter was. So it is important what people like that say. I'm not saying they have to be right wing or have right wing talking points. He can still be left. He can still say he doesn't agree with the things Charlie Kirk said if he doesn't. But to call for violence and a lot of the other things, there was a clip put together. Now, I realize Destiny has been on the air for well over a decade, but he has called for violence a number of times that even I was surprised to see.
I mean,
He
I'm not, but sorry, I was trying to bring up.
he was saying about Charlie Kirk that the right wingers need to be scared. Right wingers need to be scared of the consequences, so they shut up.
He said, if you didn't want your friend Charlie Kirk to die, you shouldn't have voted for Donald Trump. So that just fully implicates, and the intention is very clear as to what he was meaning when telling people, oh, if you didn't want violence to happen, you shouldn't have elected through a democratic process the now president of the United States. But so you grabbed this article. It's from the Times of India because
Okay, let's go into the article.
Google didn't have much else. Who is Steve Bannell II, aka Destiny, facing backlash after he refused to condemn Charlie Kirk's assassination? Political streamer Destiny or Stephen Bannell II.
Oh, and 1 second. I'm actually a little bit interested in this article because I already knew he was. I just grabbed an article quickly to see kind of what they would say. So
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet.
So yes, during the appearance that we just watched, Destiny was asked to criticize Kirk's killing. However, he outrightly refused to do so, saying, "I won't condemn anything until Trump can go on air and say all of us need to calm down." And we've spoken about why it's not the same on both sides. Now, videos of Destiny from the episode are doing rounds on the internet, bringing backlash from viewers and sparking a heated debate across social media platforms. Elon Musk responds to Destiny's video, refusing to condemn Charlie Kirk's assassination. One such clip caught the attention of Tesla CEO Elon Musk, sharing the video. An ex-user wrote, "Why hasn't Amazon banned their streamer who has repeatedly called for conservatives to be ended?" Adding, "You know this is on you, Jeff Bezos, right? Anything happens to one of us and you will be held personally responsible." Replying to the post, Musk said, "I don't think this jackass should be banned, but Amazon should stop paying him to incite endings. That's insane."
Okay, let's keep going down. That's what I want to see. Who is...
Okay. So, who is Destiny, aka Steve Bannell II? Stephen Kenneth Bannell II, better known online as Destiny, is an American streamer and political commentator. The 36-year-old began his career streaming StarCraft 2 before shifting toward political debates and commentary. Destiny is known for his sharp exchanges with both right-wing and left-wing figures, often positioning himself as a liberal or social democrat. The worst. His outspoken style has made him one of the most polarizing voices in online politics. Born in Omaha, Nebraska, Destiny grew up in a conservative Catholic household and later studied music before
that
dropping
point
out.
right there is a big point because that's what used to make him one of the best debaters. He knew the right wing very well because he grew up in a right wing household and watched a lot of right wing media growing up. He even says that the problem is he's been so much in a bubble for the last couple decades, he is completely lost the plot and he no longer has talking points. He just likes to gish gamble and talk over people.
And it is funny that this point specifically also would help him understand how Tyler Robinson got radicalized as well, because he keeps saying, oh, he's coming from a Republican conservative family. Well, so did you.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into the next article
Sorry,
here.
I really don't like him.
Well, I will say it's him, Hassan, and Bosch are
gosh.
3 content creators. If you want to get the left-hand view and the more extreme left-hand view, those are 3 content creators you can watch, and you'll instantly kind of know their logic and thinking.
And also kind of what sadly almost the mainstream left is thinking. Now, I wouldn't say all of it, but at least the young ones.
Yeah.
Sorry, the article is freezing, so I'm trying to fix it.
You can skip the article and just go to the next one if you don't have it.
Okay. Well, now everything's freezing. Okay. From Tucker Carlson News, someone also under hot water. Elon Musk is considering backing JD Vance in 2028 rather than starting a new party. As of today, how would you rate your level of support for JD Vance?
Yeah, and I just brought up this X because we're going to go into the article, but the article is a month old. So there was talk about this a month ago, but now that this has happened to Mr. Kirk, there's kind of a consolidation here. And I think JD Vance is definitely not only the front runner, but the Conservative Party are going to kind of rally behind him. There was talk of Steve Bannon. I also do like Steve Bannon, but I think JD Vance is the future.
Yes. So Elon Musk reportedly eyeing JD Vance for 2028 as he hits the brakes on plans for new political party. And Elon was debating and discussing starting a new political party a while ago.
Well, you're going to see a lot of Silicon Valley kind of rally behind JD Vance and Trump in the midterms. Why? Because I think he's going to really set the precedent for free speech and start protecting American companies. A lot of these American companies are being fined to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars by the EU, by Canada, by other governments around the world. I think Donald Trump is going to put an end to that. And I think you're going to see a real consolidation of Silicon Valley behind the Conservative Party.
Do you want to go into the article or?
No, we can keep going here. We got quite a few articles left.
Yes, and moving a little bit upwards towards Canada. Canada's Chrystia Freeland quits cabinet to become Ukraine envoy. Not surprising.
Yeah, and she tried to run for prime minister for a quick second, realized the whole world did hate her. She was the economic minister, I believe, under Justin Trudeau. She was then there with Mark Carney. She's now going to take Ukraine. This is a very interesting position for her because she's going to go there and there's no really oversight of those billions of dollars Canada is giving to Ukraine. Per capita, Canada gives the most money to Ukraine of any other country. That includes the United States because the population is so low. The fact that she's going to have unfettered access to that money and put it wherever she wants, I wouldn't trust her for a heartbeat.
So Canadian Minister and Member of Parliament Chrystia Freeland has announced she will step down from Prime Minister Mark Carney's cabinet and will not run for re-election. Freeland will instead take on a new role as Canada's special envoy to Ukraine, Carney said. She has been a fixture of Canadian politics since 2015, serving as former Finance and Foreign Affairs Minister, as well as Deputy Prime Minister. Freeland is also credited with forcing former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's exit after abruptly resigning from his cabinet last year.
And there are rumors that 4 other cabinet members are going to step down from Mark Carney's cabinet. That's very interesting. I don't know if that has to do with tariff negotiations or the upcoming budget that's finally going to be released in November. The Canadian economy is on a razor's edge. It has been there for the last couple of years, but it is really at a tipping point now. So it's going to be very interesting what happens in November when that budget is released.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can continue on to, I think Donald Trump is next and the Palisades fire.
Yes, sorry. YouTube was being weird. So if for some reason you're not able to see right now, sorry. From Wall Street, sorry, I was checking. From Wall Street Apes, wow, Donald Trump just literally confirmed the Pacific.
Hold on.
The Pacific. The Pacific.
Okay, I was just checking the switcher there to see if it was actually working.
No, it's. I think it's internet or OBS probably.
Okay.
Wow, Donald Trump just literally confirmed the Pacific Palisades fires were a land grab. Gavin Newsom is in the final stages of stealing fire victims' land to build a low-income housing. Insane.
Okay, let's actually read this. But before we do, this has been a plot that the Liberals wanted to implement in California to burn down large portions of rich areas and then build low-income housing in these areas. There were actually a couple books written about this. As soon as these fires happened, a lot of people thought Gavin Newsom was going to do this. It looks like he is. We do have an article after this. That article was written about a month ago, but even then they were speculating that this was Gavin Newsom's plan. That's why they they never managed the forest in those areas or the dry brush, and they also didn't have any water.
I mean,
there is conspiracies behind this. So,
and all the way back a year ago when they were happening, this was already in talks of this was being the actual motive. So Donald Trump says, shockingly, I have just learned that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is in the final stages of approval to build low-income housing in Pacific Palisades. How unfair is it to the people that have suffered so much? Newsom allowed their houses to burn by not accepting hundreds of millions of gallons of water from the Pacific Northwest. And now the low-income housing starts rising long before he gets permits for California citizens to rebuild, but long after the federal permits were issued. Lee Zeldin, EPA administrator, and I, as president, have done the job and produced all permits long before anybody expected that to happen. Unfortunately, the governor of California and Mayor Karen Bass failed you. Gavin Newsom's plan to build low-income housing at super luxury Pacific Palisades fire site is what caused the destruction of the late great New York City Mayor John Lindsay's political career, and John Lindsay was a Republican.
Yeah, and Trump knew this was going to happen. When he went out there, he said, we're going to sign all the permits right away. The federal government signed the permits for it. It was Mayor Karen Bass that refused to sign it. At the press conference with Trump, she said she would. She never planned to. And now we're seeing a lot of these people's homes being taken from them, their land being taken from them, and they're going to build low-income housing here. This is a little bit ridiculous. This is another one of those land grabs that we showed earlier in the episode that Gavin Newsom is taking farmland from white farmers and giving it to people that are in DEI groups. So.
But now, Senate bill that would have turned lost Pacific Palisades homes into affordable housing put on pause, according to Fox 11 LA. A controversial Senate bill.
Oh, and 1 second. This article was from about a month ago, I believe. So
let me see.
July
16th.
Yeah, so this is what they were expecting. It got put on pause, and this is kind of what was expected to happen when this whole thing was put on pause. People knew what the government's true intentions were here.
So a controversial Senate bill aimed at creating affordable housing in Pacific Palisades has been paused due to community opposition and concerns about decision-making authority. State Senator Ben Allen announced the pause to allow more time for community input and support from impacted council members. Despite the bill's delay until 2026, residents and local leaders, including Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, continue to express strong support. Not surprising.
Yeah, so they put the bill on pause, so all the rhetoric and all the people that were kind of protesting, all that would simmer down, people would forget about it, then they took it off pause. The interesting thing in that article is they didn't say it was stopped, they said it was paused, and now it's being unpaused. And I hope people really take heed of Donald Trump's words and they realize this thing is on and running, and people need, again, to call Gavin Newsom and let him know this isn't acceptable. These land grabs he's doing in California, the same way the Canadian government's doing land grabs up there, just is not acceptable.
And we also have something not acceptable, which is people still trying to pretend like the left hasn't gone completely insane, especially because of the cognitive dissonance that comes with having to accept that. But from libs of TikTok, MSNBC's Brandy Zardronzi on Charlie Kirk's assassination to suggest that the internet is cheering for this is the total opposite of what's actually happening. Unbelievable. There are tens of thousands of examples. She's just straight up knowingly lying.
Yeah, and we have some examples later. I think we may show those on RUMBLE later, but we've been showing them every day. So what she is doing is gaslighting the mainstream public, but a lot of liberals are eating this up like it is truth, and it is absolutely not.
And she's on MSNBC, but actually, again, if you go to Libs of TikTok, they're posting every single person, what they posted, and if or not they got fired. So, and there's tons of them.
I think if you look across media generally, you have seen a lot of people trying to grapple with Charlie Kirk's legacy and what that is as a wing agitator and as a provocateur and as, a strategist and the most important GOP figure.
And they call him a right-wing agitator. He was literally creating a space for left-wing people that maybe didn't have a voice, and they were able to go on his platforms, which was one of the biggest platforms in the world. A lot of times when people have big platforms, they won't platform people that are smaller or don't have social media. So what he was doing was not only helping the right, but helping the left to engage in debate so the best ideas could rise to the top.
Besides Donald Trump, arguably ever. And so, or right now. And so there's a lot of grappling to do, but to suggest that the internet is cheering for this is just the opposite, total opposite of what's actually happening.
It is horrible.
I think if you look across.
And it's not the opposite. We'll have some clips later, but we've showed them day after day. My social media is absolutely flooded with people that are just saying horrible, despicable things. That being said, I don't think somebody should necessarily face repercussions from the government, but if they reflect inappropriately on a private employer and break company policy, I think it's a different situation.
Yes, and I mean, she's just trying to cover for the left again on MSNBC, and she's not the only one that's doing it. There are also countless examples of other people lying, like Jimmy Kimmel, who we started this whole show with, and multiple others. And the problem is that they are these prominent figures, including some politicians like Ilhan Omar, AOC, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, other ones that just continue to blatantly lie. And the problem is people do listen to them. And some of the moderates do still kind of listen to them. Hopefully that'll change and truth will prevail.
Okay, let's go into affordable homes in Canada. And this is very interesting because these aren't affordable at all. And the Canadian government is going to spend $3.225 million per home. And these aren't luxury homes. These are very small homes. The fact that they're rejecting private industry and the Canadian government wants to get into home building itself, but they can't do it at an affordable cost, they're going to bankrupt the Canadian public.
So Jay Gen Xer says, where do I sign up for one of these affordable free homes that are $3.25 million each?
How the fuck does this make any sense? Our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, just pledged $13 billion for 4,000 homes to fight homelessness. Let's do the math. 13 billion divided by 4,000 homes equates to about $3.25 million per home. The majority of Canadians don't even live in a $3.5 million house. For fuck's sakes, most families struggle to pay rent.
Yeah, and sorry about the language, but he does make a good point here, so I am going to let it play. Let's continue.
Rent and afford groceries. And we're supposed to believe this is affordable housing? Affordable for who? Here's the kicker. City of Toronto's website shows that as of October of 2024, there are over 15,000 people that are homeless on our streets. 15,000 people, and I guarantee you that number has gone up since then. So even if what Carney was doing was legit, which it isn't, it wouldn't even scratch the surface. So I'll ask again, what the fuck are they doing with taxpayers' money?
Okay, that's pretty good. We'll go into the article now, which will be a little bit more detailed with the numbers, I think.
And less expletives. Hopefully. Maybe I'll say some expletives because it is insane. And I have detailed before, I guess, other ways in which the Canadian government has used homelessness and housing to funnel money to friends.
The Canadian government could just let private industry do their thing and drop all taxes on private industry when it comes to home building, and maybe even put grant money in towards these houses, and it would be a lot cheaper to do overall.
So from the CBC, state-sponsored media from Canada says Carney announces launch of new housing agency, earmarks funding for new projects. Build Canada Homes was part of Liberal promise to double housing construction. It doesn't seem like they're doubling.
Okay, and the reason they're doing this and they're not actually making affordable homes and they're not making homes en masse is because Mark Carney realizes the majority of his voters are older voters and he doesn't want their home prices to drop because he fears not winning re-election.
Mm-hmm. It says Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Sunday afternoon the launch of Build Canada Homes, the federal government's new agency that will oversee federal housing programs. The agency was part of the Liberals' election promise to double housing construction. The government is touting Build Canada Homes as a centralized agency, like they love to centralize everything, to oversee new affordable housing programs initiated at the federal level. Because only the government can fix things. Carney said the agency will supercharge housing construction across Canada to help build blah, 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 blah. And as of now, they've only announced the building of 4,000 homes for 3
Yeah. And like I said earlier, I believe it's November 4th is when the scheduled budget's supposed to come out for this government. It was supposed to release it almost I wouldn't say a year ago, but almost a year ago. And they've just delayed and delayed and delayed. That's going to be the real date that the bill is due. So it's going to be very interesting what happens then. Okay, let's head over to...
And Rafa. Hello, Rafa. How are you? Rafa says, hello, looking so elegant today.
Yeah.
You mean him, I guess.
A little bit more professional from now on, I guess. At least from the night show. The morning show, maybe not.
Yes, I'll continue to wear black for a while. And Rafa says, just landing in Guadalajara, arriving from California. Oh, so you were in California.
We were asking
we
if
were
it was
debating
Disneyland,
each other where you were.
if it was Disneyland or Disney World. So yeah, I used to live right by Disneyland. So hopefully you had a good time over there.
Yes, hopefully it wasn't too horrible.
And let us know if you went to Knott's Berry Farm as well. Another smaller theme park right by Disneyland.
That we talked about.
Yeah, a lot of people do go to Knott's Berry Farm when they are in that area.
Did you go to Halloween Horror Nights? I'm also wondering about that.
Knott's Berry Farm actually has one of the better
That one too, yeah.
Halloween nights. Yeah.
But so we are heading over now to...
and Universal Studios. Did you go to...
That's what I mean. That's Halloween Horror Nights is in Universal Studios.
And then Magic Mountain's there as well. I used to live in California, so I used to go to all these places.
Yeah.
Before it was crazy.
Yes. But well, it's always been kind
not
of
like
crazy.
now, I'll tell you that.
Not at all. Not with what we've talked about as well with the Pacific Palisades and all that they're trying to do now.
The Palisades wasn't even the big story. The big story was he was taking farms from white farmers to give it to DEI identified individuals, which is crazy. Thank God Newsom's governing California.
But now we are heading over to RUMBLE because the rest of the stories are not too spicy for YouTube. So follow us on there, but don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't. And most importantly, subscribe here on YouTube because we're trying to get to 500 soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll see you over on Rumble. Oh, damn. I always mess up.
A little nervous. It's your first day on the job.
Yeah. Well, it's my first day with someone looking like